come all the way catacornered across here, and from here on she goes to Mexico to appear at another conference that goes on the next weekend after this. Her research work in the field of interspecies communications, dolphins and that sort of thing, I think you're going to find quite interesting. And we're pleased to have her with us here in Florida. Will you welcome Iona this morning, please, as she comes forward? I know you'll enjoy what she's got to say.
Great.
Fringe benefits.
Thank you.
Should I pour it for you?
Yeah, that would be nice. Good morning, everybody. It must be early. Did you sleep last night? Well, that's what I didn't do either. As a matter of fact, I got woken up and I heard, "Oh, we've got the fire under control. It's all right." The security agent on his little walkie-talkie. So tonight, I encourage everybody to check your fire exit first. You know, I did that the first night we got here, and I thought, it's always a silly thing to do to check your fire exit, but really it's a good idea, just in case. There are more seats over there. So I'd like to welcome you to the talk this morning about dolphins, the holographic universe, and the nature of manifestation. Before I get into that, let me tell you just a little bit of a story, which will introduce Don, my sweetheart husband, who's all been to Denver conferences. Who's heard Don before? Okay, well, good, then you'll hear something new. Some of you guys I remember. I know you've been there. We were on the flight over here, and Don and I were sitting together, and behind me were these pairs of eyes that were like really gleaming and shining. And I thought, ooh, this is one of our kind of guys. And he kept looking over, you know, through the crack of the seats. So I finally turned around and I said, "Oh, what kind of book are you reading?" And it was on relationships and stuff. And I don't know how, but within the first 3 minutes of us talking, he said, "I just swam with dolphins." That was just last week in Florida. And then we got to talking a little bit more, and he says, "I work at NASA. Used to work at the White House, now he works at NASA." I said, "Oh, that's neat." And he said, "Oh, it's only an hour from Daytona. You should come and see it." So he invited us to give us a private tour, so we didn't decline. So we went yesterday to NASA and got some private tours. We saw the public part of the tour, which was really beautiful. And then we saw some behind-the-scenes things. For one, he took us to the space module they're going to send up to the space station, which parts of are already up there. But the American module that's going up along the way, one of them is where they're going to grow plants out in space. So after the talk, after the walk is over, he walks us back to his office, and we said, "Can we show you something? Let's show us our website." And we took him to our website for the SE5. Now, how many of you have heard of the SE5? Okay. The SE5 is a radionic instrument, and if you've come to Global Sciences before, you've heard probably of radionics and the amazing results that you can get with this black box. Some call it the God box. You put a picture in of a plant, you tell the machine some frequency numbers, and the plant grows 50 miles further away or 100 miles away. Well, we thought we should show him some results that we've gotten over the years. We've been involved with the SE5 since 1987, and Don has written a book, and he'll come up in a minute and show you some of the research data that has been collected in Germany, where they always keep nice, neat notes. And so we showed him some of these pictures. And actually, Don, why don't you come and do that part, and then I'll finish up the story with our NASA guy. It was really fascinating being up there, and I thought, what if they knew about radionics out in space? If they could use some of this for growing plants up there. And then we showed him this one particular picture Don is going to show you, and he just about fell out of his shoes.
Try this one?
You want to try that one first?
Can you hear me with this one okay? Okay, great. Let's see, where's the light switch on this?
Front left.
Last year I rewrote my book. I wrote this book in 1993 about some of the amazing things that we'd experienced with the SE5. And I presented my first debut of my book at Global Sciences in Denver that year. And since then I've rewritten the book and added about 40 new pages with a lot of color photos of different experiments. And some of those I'm going to show you. A lot of these experiments were done at the Institute for Resonance Therapy in Germany. And they have 15 of these instruments now. If you don't know what they look like, this is an SE5, and it's now been upgraded to the SE5 Plus, which is kind of an advanced model of what's shown in the picture here. They've been hired by a lot of different government agencies now around the world that work on land development to help restore the forests. A lot of damage has been done by pollution, acid rain, and different things like that around the world, and there are huge acres of forests that have been dying off. And so many government agencies have been working with them to restore their forests. Now, their little tiny office is in Germany, and yet they're working on these forests halfway around the world with these instruments. And the way that they do that, the way that this works is you take a sample photograph of the area that you're working on and put it inside the instrument and then send specific frequencies, tuning frequencies to those trees and forests. Just to give you an idea what can happen with seeds, to give you an example of this.
Sorry. This is the one that we showed to the NASA person. We said, look what they could do with seeds out in space.
These, the top 10 seeds and the bottom 10 seeds were all planted at exactly the same time. The top 10 seeds were not sent any informational frequencies at all, and the bottom ones were sent frequencies to help support their growth and their nutrition just by the instrument. And this was done at a distance, from some distance away. So you can see, obviously, the top ones, the difference between the top ones and the bottom ones. The bottom ones have much more developed root structure and are much more vibrant and healthy. Just to experiment to see how far away and if this was really if they could measure the effects of the SE5 at a distance, what they did was they hooked up an electroencephalograph to a plant, and then this is the graph of that. And right at this point right here is when they switched on the SE5. And this plant, they drove away 50 kilometers, which is about 35 miles, away from the plant with the SE5. And then in the laboratory, this is when they switched on the SE5 50 kilometers away. And you can see what happens, that the plant was registering exactly when that signal was turned on. And this is only via a photograph. So they had a photograph of the plant, drove it away 50 miles, and then switched it on, which I find rather astounding that the plants are that sensitive. So they did some double-blind studies with some trees. In the control study, the way that they measured the trees to see how well they were doing with restoring the trees is they would take a light meter underneath of the trees, and of course the less light that would come through means the more leaves were on the tree. And the more, if there were less leaves on the tree, then more light would come through. So these were the controlled studies where they didn't use the SE5 on the trees, here, here, and here over the 3 years. And I'll show you some pictures of these trees. The first year they were somewhat similar. The second year there was second and third year there was a drought, and the control study stayed pretty much the same. But by the third year, you can see there's been a definite decrease of light over each year. The second year, this is when the real strong drought was, and they hardly got any leaves on the other tree that was not treated. And so a lot of light was coming through. And then the third year came down a little bit, but you can see a definite decrease of light each year in the ones that were treated, which means that they were producing more and more leaves every year. This one happens to be a pine tree. This was in 1981 when they 1989 when they started, and then 3 years later, this is what it looked like. So the trees produced a lot more growth. In this case, they were needles instead of leaves. They did it both on deciduous trees and evergreen trees. One other experiment that they did in Germany was to see about inhibiting mold growth in food. These are apple juice and orange juice, and those are apple juice and orange juice, and they took 2 trays and they put them on a heater for 2 weeks. And the only difference between these was they typed in some words into the unit and said, "Don't grow mold." That's all they did. It's just an intention. It was their mental intention that they typed into the computer and said, "Don't grow any mold." These grew, well, you can see how much more. This is 2 weeks later. And the last one I'm going to show you, how many people know about homeopathy and know what a homeopathic remedy is? Okay, most everybody knows what that is. Several years ago, once the SE5 was out, it's been out for about 11, 12 years now. Once word got around that we were able to make homeopathic remedies with the SE5, or homeopathic-like remedies, potentized substances, some of the homeopathic pharmacies did some tests on them and found out that indeed they were making very good potencies, and that they would last longer and they could make them up fresh. So many of the pharmacies now use the SE5 to create their homeopathic remedies, even though they don't advertise that. So I did some microscopic studies on, this is a solution before potentizing, and then we looked at it under a dark field microscope afterwards, and you can see the crystals that had formed in the substance. And this is just by putting informational structures into that liquid substance that it produced actually tiny crystals. And I believe that those tiny crystals are like little recording devices for the information, and they store that information and hold it. And that's what is the resonating frequency in a potentized substance or a homeopathic remedy. So I'm going to turn it back over to Ilona. These are some of the pictures that are on the internet site that we showed to the NASA person yesterday. If any of you have access to the internet, the entire book, Regaining Wholeness Through the Subtle Dimensions, is on the internet, and you can read it for free. It's at www.se-5.com, or we'll have some books available after the talk later on today, too. So I'll turn this back over to you.
All right, thanks very much, Don. Wasn't that awesome? Let's give him a hand. So we showed that to our NASA person, and he was like stunned. So he's going to do some research, and we hope we have an inroad. Then I said, so what else are they going to do up there besides grow plants? And he said, well, we're going to do research, for health, AIDS vaccines, cancer cures. I said, you should come to this conference, the Global Sciences. Let me give you some updates. I told him about Bob Beck's tape. One of his lectures you can hear also on that internet site. And I said, just last year alone, we've been dealing and handling Bob Beck's instruments since 1989 and know him and all that. And we said we had just a few months ago, 4 or 5 months ago, a doctor call our office who used Bob Beck's zapper, the plant stimulator. You know which one that is? The one you put on your wrist and turn on and it makes a little electrical stimulation. A doctor called us who worked through another doctor. He'd cured over 100 people of cancer with it. He called us and said, well, this is the research we've done. So then another doctor called us from, he'd done, over the last 3 years, 10 AIDS patients. All of them had no more symptoms. And they were 3 of them in Puerto Rico and somewhere else and some here in the United States. He's like, And I said, you know, they're just using the excuse for doing cancer research and AIDS research to collect money and probably to get, you know, for PR. But the matter of fact is, we already know that this type of device or these cures are already among us, except they're not being publicized. And you have to come to conferences like Dean's and here at Global Sciences and to even hear about it and tell your friends about it. So I just thought I'd give you a little update. Two lymphoma people called us last spring within a week time, both of whom had had lymphoma and had used both the magnetic pulse unit. All the people, even the cancer and the AIDS person, had always used the pulse unit and the electrical unit, didn't have any more lymphoma. So, you know, this isn't Bob Beck talking to try and promote, you know, his idea. This is us hearing back from the people in the field who've used the instruments successfully. So I think that's worthwhile knowing about. Candida, just the same. All right, so then we got to talking about our favorite subject, which is dolphins. And he just swum with them for the first time, and he was totally lit. It was, like, exciting. You know, a lot of people who swim with dolphins come back transformed. There's something about dolphins that elevates your spirit. When you walk amongst dolphins or angels, you feel this expansion within your heart. Something opens up inside of you, especially if they send their sonar sound out to you. They've been known to know exactly where a pain spot is in a client. This is now in captive situations, which I don't promote. But they'll come to a person's pain spot and sonar that. I've seen this on film footage. And the person is pain-free for quite some time. A personal friend of mine had swum with dolphins after she had discovered that she had cysts in the wild, and they would come to her, and one particular time they would swim in a circle underneath of her, pointing all their noses at her belly and sonaring up at her stomach, after which she didn't have cysts anymore. During that time period of 2 months, they did this several times in various ways. Dolphins have been known for their healing abilities, and what I'd like to get into a little bit is how can we develop that? Did you know that their brain, the bottlenose dolphins, the one that look like Flipper, have 30% more brain mass than we do as humans? The surface area of their entire brain is 4 times the size of the surface of a human brain. That means those little crevices, you know, on the neocortex, the gray matter, what we call the part of intelligence, they have more of those convolutions, so there is more surface area that is covered. So having a brain has something to do with, utilizing signals, receiving signals, and transmitting signals. It doesn't mean that you can't talk to a tree or a stone or your dog. They are very telepathic too. As a matter of fact, everything is alive. And Serge King writes in his book how he talks to his computer. An excellent way to realize that everything is alive and animate. So whatever you can get in touch with your mind will start transforming and acting differently. The trick is realizing how to do that with our mind. How do you talk with a computer? So the easier part is to start doing it with some humans or some, like I did with some dolphins. So I practiced some telepathy because I couldn't understand their high-pitched sounds. It just felt like a fax tone going overhead over my mind. And when I've swum with dolphins and they've sent information or images to me, I've usually tried to confirm it. Like one time, Don and I were swimming with 2 other women in a bay out in Hawaii. And this was one of the first few times I swam out with them. And we swam out, and you know, when you're amongst dolphins, you forget time instantly. There is no thinking about tomorrow or yesterday. There's something that captivates your mind that just goes right into the present. And we'd heard from a dolphin researcher, Roberta Goodman, a good friend of mine, who worked with Dr. John Lilly, that to track dolphins, you have to become ecstatic. Now, I'd like you to practice a little bit of that. How do you get ecstatic? Now imagine cold water. I mean, geez. Okay, so imagine getting ecstatic. What do you do? What do you do inside of yourself to create that space? You know, how often do we sit around and just are normal? I mean, we don't have to waste our time being normal. We can be ecstatic whenever we want to. We have free license. So going into the bay with that one day with the dolphins, we mustered up this energy of excitement in the cold water. So we swam out there and from then on forgot time. And so I experimented with sending some thoughts. I'd heard that they have nurseries of moms and babies, but I hadn't seen any. So I said, okay, dolphins, where are the moms and the babies? And as soon as I thought it, within 10 seconds, the moms and babies came running in front of me, swimming by, and the babies are so cute. They go by and snoop by you because they don't have any fear yet. They don't know that you're a human that could be potentially dangerous. They want to look up at you, and the mom goes, and then they go back to their mom. It's really cute to see. They're not any different, really, than we are. They're mammals. They feed their young by breastfeeding them underwater. That's a trick. And they breathe air like we do, except they do it voluntarily, and they never sleep. They only turn half their brain off at a time. So here we are forgetting time. And all of a sudden, I hear this message in my head that says, go back now. You have just enough energy to make it back. I stuck my head out of the water just in case somebody else had heard the same message. And sure enough, Dawn and the other woman that were swimming right around me had heard the same message. So dolphins apparently can send messages to us that we translate into English in our mind, or into an understanding, and they somehow evaluated our human capacity. I mean, could you swim with a dolphin and say, I think it's about time you rested, because I think you're going to run out of energy? Like, look, it's this far back to the shore, you know? So what did we do? We all thought, well, this must be a real message. 3 of us had heard it, not just one. So we all swam back. But halfway through, my leg started cramping up, one of my legs, my right leg, and I could hardly swim anymore. There was a current coming in our way, and I was pedaling as fast as I could with the other leg, and I started panicking. Well, eventually I did make it back. I'd used these tools that I'd learned, holographic imaging. I imagined myself back at the beach. Wherever your mind goes, there is where reality goes. So I eventually get to the beach and I try to stand up. And I collapsed. I couldn't. So I crawled back on the beach and I pondered the message of the dolphins. You have just enough energy to make it back. That was pretty amazingly accurate. If dolphins can actually evaluate us, know where we have pain, where we have cysts, tumors, whether we have enough energy to make it back or not, and give us a strong enough signal, they've got something that we don't have. Not too many of us have. Some of us. And as a matter of fact, the promising part is some of us, and I think a lot of the people here at the science conference, have the tendency to know more than most other normal people, because we know that there is more than the physical universe. So that was one of the examples of how dolphins have communicated. Another brief one was, people say, God, we shouldn't bother the dolphins. We were out in Florida here in Key West, out with a boat. And off the boat, we go into an area where the dolphins come, but it's miles and miles of territory. So we didn't know exactly when they would come and how many would come, or if they would come. So we all prayed and hoped. And one of the favorite ones I have there is called Sweetheart. He's a 7-year-old. By now he's 11. At that time he was a teenager. Cute as can be. I mean, I think he liked me. The one that liked Don a lot, that was Grandy, the mom that had later on baby Orion. She loved Don. Whenever Don would get in the water, she'd recognize him year after year in the wild, and she'd go off and take him, swim off somewhere else for 20 minutes. I wouldn't get jealous. Interspecial, whatever. I felt safe. So, well, Sweetheart liked me. So anyhow, he came that day. He came to the boat. We could recognize him by the markings on his dorsal fin. And everybody goes, oh, one dolphin. We're 7 people. I mean, it's not going to be any fun swimming with one dolphin alone. So I sent a message out. I said, Sweetheart, could you bring back your family? Can you bring back more of your pod? They swim in a family pod with aunts and uncles and nieces and nephews and kids and others from somewhere else. They hang out together for a lot of time. He dashed off. Everybody is like thinking, oh God, the only chance, one dolphin left. I mean, we're out of luck. This is expensive renting a boat. And what did I hear in my head? He said, aye, aye, sir. I'll be back in 15 minutes. 15 minutes later, the dolphin came back with his pod. Sweetheart brought his family to our boat to swim with. Now, what do you think? Is that amazing? I mean, how many times do you think you could hear your dog say, "Why don't you bring your aunt and uncle over too and have some dinner with me?" I mean, no kidding, dolphins are pretty amazing. So I thought, why don't we study a little bit more of what they can do and learn how to do it ourselves? So when we've swum with dolphins, I've tried to glean messages and verify them as best as I could. And one of the things that happened at that time being with dolphins, this has been ongoing since the early 90s, that we've swum with dolphins. And now we live part-time in Hawaii next to a dolphin beach. You fall in love with them. Is to realize what it takes to have that potential. Now, we don't have the brain size that some of them do, but we do have the ability to raise our frequency, our vibration. And we notice that when we're around dolphins, we love more, we treat people with more kindness and more love that we're swimming with outside of the water later on. We feel like a pod, like a family. And basically, what they're doing is communicating at a higher frequency so they can read us and can send us messages, which we as humans can do too. We simply have to learn how to change our focus from material focus to internal focus. And so you almost have to start walking around realizing that every time you look at a person physically, there is also another part of him or her. Another part that you can start connecting with. And as I talk, you probably can tell that when I speak to him as physically, or when I say, there is another part, that there's something in me. Can you notice just a little shift? So what we all do is we have that shift within ourselves. We all can change from focus externally to focus internally. So I'd like to recommend just a little exercise that works really well every day. So I'd like you to just take a look around the room right now and see how colors look, how people look, what you see. Okay, just so you have a frame of reference. Okay? Just how life looks. Okay? Now, I'd like you to, if you want to, close your eyes. And you can keep your eyes open if you'd like, but just go within and think of 3 things that you're grateful for in your life, large or small, whatever they may be. Just 3 things you're grateful for. And start noticing the feeling in your heart or in your body. And then as you open your eyes again, I'd like you to take a look around. And just notice how things look now. Can I hear some volunteers describing just how things look? Did they look any different? Yeah.
Brighter and clearer.
Brighter, clearer? Okay. Nods. Someone else? Some other volunteer before I pick someone. Say what? More depth perception. Okay. How about Judy?
What I noticed most was a lifting. It was like a group lifting. It was like a cloud lifted up. You know, so the things that are hindering and holding back just lifted up as a group.
Very nice. Thank you very much, Judy. I didn't prompt her. I didn't pay her off or anything. Yes, you. Thanks.
In just a few seconds, I'm on a higher dimension.
There you go. In just a few seconds, she is on a higher dimension. Judy was saying the cloud lifts. After it's almost like collectively between us, there is a lifting of blockages. Some people describe it as getting softer or warmer or fuzzier. Some see it clearer. Some see more color. Some see more feelings. And Judy was describing a lifting off of a group energy. And if you do this 3 times a day, imagine how your own life can start changing. Just a little technique like that. Start being grateful for the things that are in your life, and your heart starts opening. And if you can raise your vibration, that's when the good things come into your life. Like attracts like. So the person sitting behind me from NASA with his glowing eyes was, I think, a response to what I carry in my mind. I mean, I talk about dolphins, think about dolphins. Here's a person that is into dolphins right behind. You know, it all walks very closely together. So if you want to change your own life and what you see, start focusing on what you like to see and be grateful for whatever, even if it's ahead of time. And you start changing your frequency. Now, one experience that I had with dolphins that can lead us into doing another exercise together was, so to back up a little bit, if we raise our vibration, we raise our ability to have an intensity. Like a laser light is more intense than a normal 100-watt light bulb. With a 100-watt laser light, you can cut steel. Now, that comes as you raise your vibration and sharpen your focus on specific things. And as you do, you start gaining access into telepathy and into the inner worlds. You can start functioning at higher frequencies, at higher realities. And that's where I had to go in order to communicate with dolphins. And then you can go beyond and beyond to other dimensions of angelic beings and galactic spaces. What starts happening as we raise our vibration, we become larger in who we are. See, when we run around, we think of ourselves usually as a normal person, right? Or at least, I have to remind myself that that's not all I am, not just a body. I am an energy field, and beyond that, you can actually be a global mind. You can link into the global mindset. It's what I write about in my book, is how to change yourself. I have a specific technique in the book, actually, I should maybe show it, Journey to the Center of Creation. It's about dolphins. It's subtitled Entering the World of Dolphins and the Dimension of Dreamtime. The kind of dreamtime Aborigines talk about. The type of holographic universe where when you realize that you are a part of an entire hologram, then every change you make inside of yourself changes the big picture. I'll tell the dolphin story, we have some time, I'll tell this holographic transformation story just so you can get your fancy tickled a little bit, because you can do time travel with your mind, not just with your mind in terms of going back to past lives, but literally physically alter time, the time-space continuum. In my book I write about it, which I won't be able to go through the entire technique here, but I can tell you in general the gist of it. We all have a holographic machine in our mind. See, when we communicate at a distance with people, when we can grow plants like with the SE5, what really happens is informational fields get gathered up and get condensed, and they start creating gravitational fields and eventually manifest physically. Now, some people can do this pretty quickly, like within an instant, some 24-hour periods, and some people take a little longer, like most of us, take, whatever is okay with us, so we don't shock ourselves. Imagine if all of a sudden you can say I tried it, I just tried it the other day. I said, let's see what my speed of time is. So I said, okay, how about having an orange? And I remembered the sentence that you can manifest what you need. So I didn't really need an orange, but the person behind me said, could I have an orange juice, please? And the person brought them an orange juice within, 30 seconds or so. But anyways, I said, sorry. Anyhow, so I want to share a story about the holographic transformation, just so you have an idea. In my book, I talk about the specific technique that you can read up on and then practice at home. I also have a children's book, which is really step by step with pictures and drawings of how to do this technique. But this is how it goes in essence. Don and I were in Germany about to see a friend, and we had to take a train ride. In Germany, the trains are always nice and neat and orderly and on time, and everything works. It's fantastic. And so we got in, and we'd called our friend ahead in Stuttgart. We were leaving from Bonn. And he had said, well, I'm moving this week. I don't have a new phone number yet, but let's meet in Stuttgart at the time of your arrival under the big, large clock in the railway station. It's a beautiful old railway station, like the old European ones look like. So we're starting out on our journey. Well, our train isn't leaving. 10 minutes later, it finally leaves, and we have to give way to other trains now because we're in their way, so we have to let them go and wait longer. So as we're driving along these couple of hours, the clock is ticking past the due time when we were supposed to be at the railway station. Like, we're 10 minutes late, we're 20 minutes late, we're 40 minutes late, we're 45 minutes late. Our friend is a classical musician, was having a rehearsal that afternoon and had to be somewhere at a certain time, so we had a window of time to see him. How would you feel if you were late and you knew that if you got there, you probably had to turn around because you missed your appointment? Lousy. I mean, at least that's how I felt. Frustrated and lousy. Do you know where you feel that when you feel frustrated? I feel it in my belly, in my stomach. You know, like a fire burning, like this. Is this train going to speed up or what? Well, you know, I knew this nifty technique that I'd learned through working with dolphins, through being in this whole process of realizing how our entire world is more than meets our eye. And I started talking to this feeling in my stomach. So I'll walk you just briefly through this, and you can take mental notes. It's pretty easy to remember. This feeling had a color. What color do you think it would have had? Red, that's right. I took this red color outside of myself. It had a shape of a fireball. You know those feelings, right? Sometimes it's the frog in our throat, sometimes it's the stone on our heart, or the whatever. This one was a fireball in my stomach. Now, these things are living entities. You can talk to them. They have a story, a history, a future. And this one was going to have a future of being upset, being late. So I said, what is it you're doing for me? Well, I'm steaming mad. I'm creating lots of steam. I want us to get there on time. Well, I mean, they're cute. I mean, get there on time was his real intention, but there wasn't any way he was going to get me there on time by being mad in my stomach, right? So I said, and this is the trick. This is how you do time travel in the physical. How would that look like, I said, if you were already on time? And it said, well, you know, I'd have this gigantic rainbow and this hug, and we would all meet on time. And I got this wonderful feeling inside of me as I occupied my mind with this thought of how it would be if I already had what I wanted. How would your life be if you already had what you wanted? This image came as a symbol. It came as a rainbow image, and of us hugging each other. So I thanked the old image. We don't want to waste energy. We want to appreciate the fireball and appreciate it for what it's wanted to do. And then I asked it if it was willing to transform and become that new energy. And lo and behold, it was willing, because ultimately that's what its true intention was. So it became absorbed into the rainbow image. Gesundheit. And as you can imagine, I felt a lot better. I started taking this picture inside of me, and there are a few more steps to do. You can take it to your advisory board. You know, Napoleon Hill, who had these inner advisors, well, he got rich that way. Well, I have this meeting place in my mind where I have all these guardian angels and inner advisors working with me. So this was one more member to make sure I got there on time, right? I mean, of course, my left brain was going, right, you're not going to do anything differently other than feel good. This is nice for the chemistry in your body, which is a great healing technique, but you know, I'm just going to be sitting here. So sure enough, the clocks along the way just showed whatever I was expecting. They were still late. So we get there, bless you, and we arrive there and have to get out on a different train track because we're in the wrong place. So we get out and going, God, you know, where's our friend? And we're going to go to that place where we're supposed to meet him. So Don looks around and he says, well, maybe he's still around. And sure enough, our friend sees us and comes running to us and says, Don, Ilona, how did you make it here early? We gapped up at the clock just to prove to him that we weren't early. And it was earlier than we were supposed to be there. And in Germany, this was in August, they didn't have time zones. And they didn't have yet the winter-summer switching time. We were there early. It's pretty amazing. We had a couple other instances in our lives where time shifted, where things that were anomalous happened. Can you imagine? A little imagination can go a long way. Now, I hope you wrote down or memorized this technique. What you do is you go into your body, you feel what you feel, you communicate it through color and shape, and you find out what it really wants. Because anything, no matter how negative it is or appears from your perspective, wants something good. The positive intent is inherent in everything in the universe, based on because creation exists because the source created it. It's like there is a drive to be. And you can use that and unfold any event in your life to the higher potential. So that was the time travel story. We did this a number of times through the holographic imagery transformation. And what I found with dolphins is that they communicate much in these images, and you can send images if you focus them. And the higher you rise, see, what you do is you take your vibration from a lower vibration from anger and frustration to a higher frequency. And the more often you do this technique, the more powerful your mind will get in being able to manifest instantly or move into frequency realms that you love to be in. Don always says to me, if he ever does something I don't really like and I'm going, Don, this is really mad-making, he said, just change the image in your mind about me. I'm sure I'll be an angel as soon as you can do that. So I figured out a trick. Every morning before he's awake, I imagine having an angel as a sweetheart, the husband. So the first words out of his mouth are just like what an angel would say. You know, he greets me as an angel. So that's how you change your reality, and that's how you can navigate around. Actually, I did try it last night. I said, now I'm going to talk about this. I better be good at this. And there was this loud music going on outside. Now, this may have been just good timing on my part, but I just imagined all the silence I could muster up. And it quit playing. I'm not going to lay any fame to that one, claim any fame, but anyways, it worked whenever I did it. So I did try this on dogs. You know, when dogs are barking in the neighborhood and you imagine the silence that you really want instead of imagining getting rid of the dog and doing whatever to him. The silence image works much better. You entice the universe to a new level. It's much more cooperative than if you try and bash it up. So one time we were out with the dolphins, and this is an incredibly powerful story to show us what we can do and what our next step can be as humans. Besides raising our vibration, realizing that everything interacts and is alive, and that your imagination has an impact on everything physical. And the higher your frequencies go, and the more focused they can be, the more potent you can be. The higher you can work from within, the grander your space of effect is. But you can just raise your vibration by being grateful 3 times a day. That's, you know, I mean, all of us, me included, when, you know, we all come and go in our frequency range, and that's how you can boost yourself up. So one time we were out with the dolphins again in Florida over the waters. And this time we were some from Germany, some other people on this beautiful catamaran. It's a big boat, and we were all strewn around, 8 people. And we went out to the boat, and I went into meditation because they really like that. Music, higher frequencies, meditation, they just gobble it up. Whereas people who drink beer and yell and scream in the water, I mean, they just leave those guys alone. They never even see a dolphin. And the other people are all having a wonderful experience. So here we were, and I was meditating, and I thought, well, maybe as a good preparation, and as I talk us through the story, maybe we can do this in our minds, just follow along a little bit. I imagined all of us on the boat together, now out on the ocean, going to see a dolphin, the dolphins. I imagined that we were all sparkles of light above our head, you know, like stars. I mean, it could be extending all around our body, but essentially, we were beings of light. Way past the limits of our physical, we were these incredible stars. Now, each one of us is this star being, so if you can, focus your attention on that other part within you and just shift your gaze inward to amplify and focus on that star that you are. And the great thing is you can mock it up if you want. You can pretend your way into it because you already are it. So on this boat, I imagined myself that way, and I imagined everyone with us being that way. That's right. And I imagined us making a circle, as though we as humans could make an imaginary circle as a light being, and then start co-creating a higher frequency at another level together of harmony. And all of a sudden, I heard commotion outside of us on the boat. And I looked out and I opened my eyes, and lo and behold, the captain was pointing out to the dolphins to the right of our boat. They had shown up out of the blue instantaneously and swum in a circular motion. They were either sticking their nose up out of the water, or their dorsal fin, or their side fluke. Normally they swim up and down like normal dolphins do, right? But here they were making a circle visible to our eyes from the boat. I quickly closed my eyes again, and I imagined on top of that how we as humans making that circle would raise even higher and higher into eventually one point. And when I felt that, I felt all of us humans entering an angelic kingdom kind of feeling, you know? How when you go in your mind, you go, and eventually it's like, poof, light. And then I imagined, well, how about having dolphins do that? Imagine meeting dolphins as these star beings. And I imagined dolphins being a circle, like they were out there, and the dolphins were also star beings, creating a circle and the oneness of a star. And again, there was commotion on the boat, and the captain said, "This is incredible. I've never seen this many dolphins all at once." And there was another circle to the left of our boat, just a little bit in front to the left. I mean, if that wasn't amazing in itself, I don't know what, but it gets better from here. So here was another circle of dolphins swimming in a circle, again, sticking out part of their flukes or their nose or their parts of their tails or something for us to be able to see a circle. Now I thought maybe there's a correlation between my imagination and what the dolphins are doing. So I thought, what? And I just got this intuition, this feeling. I think we need to unite our human consciousness and the dolphin consciousness. You know, that could be really igniting. I mean, imagine mind blending your mind with a dolphin. So I imagined the dolphins and the humans mind blending together into one star, like the star of the dolphins, and us as a human pod coming together with the dolphins and making one star together. And as I did that, I felt the most incredible ecstasy. It's like making love in your mind. It's really incredible. So as soon as I got the star image of one star, everybody was like up in arms. It was like, oh my God, look at this. The pod of dolphins now had made a large circle. The two that had been swimming had made one large circle. Such is the relationship between ourselves and others who can perceive. Now, dolphins are incredibly keen to picking up images, especially high-frequency images. But the feeling alone that I got inside, without ever seeing anything on the outside, would have been enough for me to do this over and over. So this is what you can do. Let me see if we have a few minutes. 5 minutes? Okay, we've got it. You can do this at home with your loved ones. You can do this right here, right now, and I'll walk you through just a short guided imagery for you to experiment with something that Don and I do a lot at home on a daily basis. It actually is the reason why people can harmonize in their spirit together. See, when you're a spirit being, and the other person is recognized as a spirit being, and eventually you unify your inner spirit essences, in that one point, you become harmonious, love-filled, you occupy the same space at the same time. You know, they say no two objects can occupy the same space in the same time. That's true in the physical, but on the inner realms, you can actually put your attention on a person and link your inner beingness together, and then things in the outside world start manifesting harmoniously. So if you have someone special in mind, this would be a good time to pick someone that you'd like to explore and experience more of that harmonious feeling with. And the new ones, if you would, I just suggested we do a small guided imagery in a moment, just about now. And we're going to connect with someone else that we really love or like or would like to have more harmony with. It could be your child or your pet dog or your dolphin friend and or your spouse. Anybody you'd like to do this with. So if you want to close your eyes, that's okay. You can keep it open if you want. And if I had some nice music, you'd be hearing nice, angelic music coming on right now. in just the best way you know how. Imagine being a luminous essence, and you can just make it up or be it. And above your head, if you could imagine that you had this beam of light going straight up and out, like a laser light. And you could travel along that laser light. Just as you get a little bit up outside into that sense of being a laser being, I'd like you to think of the person that you'd like to feel closer with. Just feel them. Just who they are and the way they are. And now imagine them too as a light essence. That's what they truly, really are. And they too can travel along that beam of light. So if you could imagine you and the other person traveling along that beam of light, higher and higher. Going higher. And it depends on you how high and how close you want to get. You can get very close and come together in one point where you and they become one star. Or you can stop anywhere along the way and just look at them and experience their presence. What is your relationship about? And then you can thank them for being in that presence with you, knowing that any time you want to, you can tune into this high level of connectedness. And at home, you can do this exercise much more at ease and at length. But for the time being, if you could just take a bow or appreciate their presence and just note the feeling that you have when you do this. And then gently coming back into yourself, becoming aware of your physical body more. Bringing with you that feeling of whatever that is for you. Your chair. And you may want to take a deep breath. Appreciate that sensation. And wiggle your toes and your nose. And take another deep breath. Come back into the room. And I know my time is just about up. Could I have just 30 more seconds, how about a minute, of just hearing a few people say what they might experience? Pretty please? Okay. Are there any volunteers who would like to share just a tad bit of what they experienced and what they felt like? Before I pick any volunteers? Okay, thank you.
I'll go again. My Y2K goal is to have all the laboratory testing on animals ended, abolished.
Right.
And what I did is, I saw this, and I saw all the laboratories being open, and the animals are
Shutting up.
and they say, "Oh my gosh, I'm free."
I'm free. Oh, that's sweet. Thanks very much. Did anybody do this specific? Her Y2K goal was to see animals freed out of laboratory testing environments, and she saw the end result fulfilled. A version on the see what you want. Is there anybody who did it with another partner in their mind, with the light line? that would like to share just a moment or two. Yes. Yes, late.